So very clearly, the different European countries are in different stages of getting towards this 2014 deadline that the Commission asked. I would like to start the discussion with actually a question to the room here. Are there people from non-Europe countries involved in a country TEEB somewhere else? Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, India? No, it's all Europe. Ha! Okay. There's somebody in the back, please.
Well, I'm actually also from Europe, but I'm doing an pt1 project in 3 countries in Africa. It's not really comprehensive, an ecosystem service for the whole country, but we have parts of Mali, Uganda, and South Africa. South Africa is done anyhow, but also Uganda and Mali we do. I present in the afternoon
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we will include that in our listing later. And of course, that has been brought to my attention before, is that there are some of these subglobal or regional MA studies that could be considered as starting points for regional or country teams as well. There's the thing that strikes me at least is that all of these studies at least take TEEB step 1. They all start with the discussions, as Fernando explained, sometimes very long discussions on the definitions of the services, the delineations of the ecosystems or habitats, and then proceed to do a description, maybe mapping, maybe a quantitative analysis of the service levels. And after that, it sort of gets very complicated. Then the evaluation step is where the cross-disciplinary discussion starts, and where actually this whole conference is about where ecosystem services meet the economic valuation entry, and where we start finding that neoclassical paradigms may not provide all the answers. This morning's Josh Farley presentation gave us some clues about that. But we have to proceed. We cannot stop with just doing an ecological analysis of how services are provided in the systems, or potentially can be provided, and say, see, it's also valuable, we have to protect. We have to move on from that. I would invite you all to raise questions to the presentations already here. Maybe Mike Christie has shown that they've proceeded a long way in the UK, and it's in Brussels considered one of the reference points for the next couple of years for the other countries. And Spain has done already a final report, a lot of pages. I know from Enrique Pereira, who led the Portuguese ecosystem assessment, they have another big report on that. So there's a lot of material for other countries to learn from. And this is where next week in film we will dive into what can be learned from the existing studies, so that we can help those countries that have just learned about the term, or maybe are still in the middle of this debate on which classification of ecosystem studies they should, services they should use. So it's a wide open field, but the Commission has put a deadline on this process, so we need to get moving. Questions from the room to the presenters, please. I'm working from right to left. Bettina.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to mention film, you have said it.
Okay.
2 other issues. First, I found it interesting, Petri explained to us, talked about a study that is a regional study, and I would like to know why you decided to go regional while everybody else is going national at this time. Maybe it's a proactive approach. And maybe the second issue I'd like to know a little bit about is concerning Kees and Mike's presentation, you both talked about the link between assessments and policy. I recall, Chris, in your, you mentioned that the case studies you will do.
Okay, the case study analysis will also include an analysis of potential recommendations to decision makers. And here you are trying already to include the policy aspect, which I found interesting for the case study, the more local level. And then Mike mentioned also an interesting analysis that you were looking, if I got it right, you were looking at policies that are available and how they contribute to ecosystems, services, etc. So my question to you would be, what are your experience with linking assessments and policies? Maybe what can we learn, others can learn from that? Thank you.
You started with Patrick, yeah? Okay. By the way, this was Bettina Dunkhurst, who's organizing the field meeting next week.
Okay, thank you. So why it's TEEB Nordic, its main reason is that it's funded by the Nordic Council of Ministries, so there's that kind of democracy that it would be benefiting all the Nordic countries at the same time. And of course there are, for example in Norway, they have, as I know, their own assessment going on a national level, so this is more like a overview of the different Nordic states.
Okay. Mike, will you take up?
The UK NEA and the Biodiversity Action Plan had very different reference points. So UK NEA was based on possible future scenarios of how UK might be in the future, where the NEA was very much looking at the benefits from a specific policy that then fed into cost-benefit analysis of that policy. So I suppose UK BAP was very policy specific, NEA was a general look at trends in ecosystem services, so there's kind of different remits to what they're trying to do.
You want to add to that, Chris?
In the Netherlands we try to combine the governmental stakeholders and the research, because we think it's very important to get along from the beginning and not only to give advices from the end. So also researchers and policymakers have to find their way on the track that we're going to. And it's also because we think that not only valuation in monetary aspects are important for evaluating ecosystem services, but also other things are important for decision makers, other values are important for decision makers to come to decisions.
Okay, I saw a question here. Eva?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. All of these presentations were very interesting, and actually my comment goes to Leon, because what we heard from Josh this morning and how also many of your presentations highlighted that looking at trends is extremely important for placing value on ecosystem services. So if we don't know what's changing, what's becoming scarce, we will actually not identify societal value on those services. And somehow I would just like to somehow bring this addition to, so that we are not thinking that from mapping ecosystem services, we directly proceed to valuing them somehow, that we really need the look at the trend, whether it's in the past or in the future, just like Mike Ben said, is extremely important.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the diagrams that Mike showed them for the UK NEA, but it's also an MA, but of course this was the big boxes with arrows up and down. So you have to take into account if a service is increasing and why it is increasing.